Have you ever left a meeting thinking, I had a great point. Why didn't I speak up? Or worse, you did say something, but it didn't really land. It was rushed or shaky, or maybe it got overshadowed by someone louder than you. If you're an introvert, this might be all too familiar. But let me be clear, your voice matters. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to dominate the room. What you need is a strategy. One that lets you speak up, show your value, and lead conversations without pretending to be someone you're not. In this episode, I'll walk you through 3 powerful communication strategies for introverts, helping you to be heard, respected, and recognized as the leader you are. This is part 2 in our 3-part series, How Introverts Can Rise into Leadership. In episode 1, we explored how to get noticed without being loud. Today, we're diving into how to communicate like a leader in ways that feel natural and aligned with who you are. Next time, we'll wrap the series with how to advocate for the leadership role you deserve. I'm Stacey Chazen, leadership coach and creator of the I Factor and the Introverts Leadership Formula. I help quiet professionals unlock their influence, impact, and income by using the strengths they already have. So let's jump in. Here's the first and most foundational shift. Speak from your core values. So often, introverts feel like we have to say something impressive or convincing to get noticed. But the truth is, the most powerful communication comes from alignment, not performance. When you speak from your values, your message becomes grounded, authentic, and compelling. It doesn't sound rehearsed. It doesn't feel forced. It feels solid. For example, if you're asked to weigh in on a team conflict, instead of diving into details, try anchoring your response with something like, one of the values that really guides my approach is fairness. Or, what matters most to me here is building trust within the team. These aren't phrases that you just haphazardly use, they're signals. And they position you as someone with conviction and perspective. And the best part? Speaking from your values takes pressure off of performance. You're not trying to impress, you're being real. And real is what earns respect. Strategy number 2 is use your listening superpower. While it might not sound too exciting or powerful, one of the most overlooked leadership tools is listening. As introverts, we tend to listen deeply, not just to what's said, but what's not said. Meaning we notice nuance, we pause, we reflect, and that's not a weakness, it's a superpower. But here's the catch. It only becomes visible leadership when you translate that listening into insight. So let's say you're in a brainstorming session and the conversation is going in circles. You've been absorbing, reflecting, and connecting the dots. Here's where you step in and say something like, here's what I've been hearing from different voices in the room. Or it sounds like the real issue underneath this is X, Y, and Z. What you're doing is reframing the conversation. You're lifting it up and you're moving it forward. And that's not just being helpful, that's being seen as a leader. You're leading. Leadership is about making meaning, and your listening skills let you do that in a way that's clear, calm, and powerful. One client of mine started doing this in meetings, not speaking often, but when she did, she summarized key points and asked one clarifying question. Within a few months, her manager pulled her aside and said, "You've really stepped into a leadership voice lately." Nothing changed about her personality, just the strategy she was using. And now for strategy 3. Be intentional about when and how you speak. This goes against the common advice that says, speak up more, just jump in. But you and I both know that doesn't work for everyone. Introverts tend to think before we speak. And that's okay. In fact, it's good. What matters is not how often you speak, but how effectively. So before you chime in, ask yourself, am I adding clarity or shifting the direction of the conversation? Is this the right moment to contribute? Can I use this opportunity to reflect a core value or insight? If the answer is yes to any of those questions, speak, and speak on purpose. Here are some phrases that help you lead without overpowering. Something like, I'd like to offer a perspective that might reframe this issue. Or, here's an insight that's been forming as I've listened. These phrases command attention, not by being flashy, but by being focused. And this approach builds your credibility over time because when you do speak, people know to listen. You're not just filling air, you're adding value to the conversation. That's leadership communication. So let's turn this into action. Your introvert power practice for this week is something I call the communication audit. It's simple, but can be very revealing. Set aside 10 minutes and reflect on these 3 questions. When have I communicated really effectively in the past? What personal strengths, especially introverted ones, did I use in that moment? And what's one opportunity this week where I can intentionally apply one of those strengths again? Maybe it's in a team meeting, maybe it's following up and writing after a conversation, or maybe it's just saying, here's something I've been thinking about. Whatever it is, start small, start intentionally. You don't need to speak all the time, but when you do speak, speak like a leader. And if you're thinking, I know what to say, I just don't know how to say it, I've got something for you to help. Download my free guide called Say It So They Listen, 10 phrases that help introverts speak with strength. It includes ready-to-use scripts and sentence starters to help you share your ideas clearly, to set boundaries respectfully, and to speak up in high-pressure situations without raising your volume. You'll find the link below in the show notes. And if this episode gave you something useful to reflect on, drop the word voice in the comments so I know you're with me. Next week, we're closing out this series with how to advocate for the leadership role you deserve. You'll learn how to ask for what you've earned without feeling pushy or self-promotional. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. Until then, speak with strength and power on.